Hi, welcome to video 19. In this video, we will learn Introduction to Behavior Driven Development or BDD with Cucumber, Introduction to Feature File, Scenarios, and Understanding Given When Then, Setting up Cucumber with the JUnit, and Scaffolding with Maven Project, Understanding how to write feature file with Gherkin language. Features and scenarios with given, when, then, and or but, writing step definition or step implementations in Java. Creating test runners to execute tests using JUnit. Understanding various reports of HTML. Few of them happen to be JSON, HTML report, and Pretty plugin. Or writing a program to understand regular expression in Cucumber. Understanding the tags and creating a program for the same. Installing Cucumber plugin for Eclipse. To give an introduction to a new topic, which is called as Cucumber. Now, the whole idea of having Cucumber is for encouraging people to have BDD, which is behavioral driven development. Now, what I mean with behavioral, let's go with the simplest understanding here. Now, what happens? We pretty much have this workflow of understanding most of our applications, which were designed long time, were using somebody called as waterfall model. So what we did, we went ahead and analyzed. We did analysis. Then we had design. Then we had development. Then we had testing. Of course, there could be another stage where we have maintenance. Perfectly fine. Now this was really good, and many times this model still people use it, but they work on a different scale. This model probably left the benchmark for most of the models which has to be found in the world, and which is called the waterfall model. Now, over a course of time, waterfall model did a fantastic job, but for the changing environment, we did not try following it. On the verge of it, we have somebody called as Agile. Now, Agile, what it does, it basically keeps executing or keep releasing the work every fortnight, kind of thing. But the whole idea of having Agile is to make the stakeholder involved in the development so that we will not fix the problems at the latest point in time. So one of the problems what Waterfall had is once you have an analysis and design, these two people can come only after testing at the maintenance stage or somewhere here. If there are some problems when it happens after testing, and fixing this would be very costly. It's really costly. So that's one of the reasons we don't encourage people to go with waterfall. Rather, what we can do is we can have somebody here, one of the very good model in the world, which is called as V model. So Agile here is again a child of a V model. The whole idea of having V model is to encourage people to involve in the testing, uh, though they have captured the development. So if we just try making the story out there, on the top here somewhere, people with very experienced who stand here, someone like a technical architect or product owner or stakeholder, whoever it is. Let's assume people who write SRS will be involved. Now, people who do SRS will gradually come for the testing, who which are basically called as UT. Now, here you have alpha, you have beta. On the other end, I have people like managers. These people will write something called as HLD, which is high level design. They eventually come here to do something called as component testing. Perfectly fine. Now, once this HLD is built by the managers or architects, sometimes they go to leaders, team leaders. So they try pretty much writing LLD. So the LLD will have something called as integration testing. Integration testing. So they take small units and start integrating. So pretty much you have a tester, and I will have the unit test cases, unit test cases. So these are gray box. So this is black box. There's one who is called as a developer. This guy should also act as a tester, but this guy, what he does is he will do white box testing. So white box testing pretty much talks of performance, amount of time, the method taken for execution, all those things happen with the white box testing. The tester here, they try doing a unit test case as a gray box. They are not like too much on the business end, neither at the development level, intermediate. As the story goes ahead, you will have a tester who's called UAT. But unfortunately, if I have somebody as a tester who can test UAT, there is no fun in the application. Now, the actual tester was supposed to be the person who was captured a SRS. Now, the whole idea is there a mechanism in our development environment such that the person who has captured SRS can go ahead and test where the SRS person, whoever is a technical architect or people with too much experience, domain expertise especially, can they test in English-like language? Who can do testing in English-like language? That's a whole idea. If we can achieve this, our job is done. Or somebody like HLD who are project managers who are not too much involved into the technology, but they're all domain experts. Can we allow them to have a platform where they can go ahead and test it? So in such cases, we have a framework which is called as Cucumber who comes and tests it. So if you go ahead and try testing technology or technically, we don't want somebody called as Cucumber. The whole idea of having Cucumber is to ensure that non-technology people can also participate in the testing forward. So now let's go ahead and understand a little more technically what my Cucumber can do. Now, first and foremost, when it comes to Cucumber, here we go. There are a few assumptions we do it when we say somebody like English language, they just cannot write the language what they wanted in bare English. There are certain rules when you want to use English like language. Now, all these rules, when you try writing it, are classified as one scenario. So the scenario is a set of test cases or set one test case, which is accumulation of small bits and pieces is called as one scenario. For example, if I want to check the credit score, that's a scenario. If I want to put an item in the Amazon cart, is a scenario. If I want to, uh, you know, get my car fueled, it's a scenario. So everything in the world, or if I want to log in, it's a scenario. If I want to log out, that's a scenario. So pretty much everything in the world is classified in the form of scenarios. Now, each I can have numerous scenarios. Each of the scenario accumulated is as one feature file. So now on one side I have somebody called as feature file. So here we have somebody called as feature file. Now what my feature file does is it keeps the scenario. So I can have scenario like scenario one, scenario two, scenario three, and so I can have as many scenarios as possible. And do remember, all our scenarios are wrapped inside a file which is called as dot feature file. That's where it is important. Now, for each of the scenario, there are some steps. So what happens? Let's try writing a simple scenario just for the sake of understanding it. So when I say something called as scenario, now each of the scenario will have certain test cases. Let's consider I want to test with something called as checking of credit score. Now, in order to check this credit score, there are so many conditions which we can go. For example, if you are applying for a mortgage loan, what are all the rules which can be applied? So how does the checking will happen? That's a whole big story, but I can wrap everything in a form of one scenario. So if I just go ahead and try doing this in a form of scenario, uh, first and foremost, I should have some kind of BDD behavior. Now, the moment I say what is called as BDD behavior, what happens? I have to follow certain rules here. Now, what are my rules? Which is called as given, when, then. Now, given, when, then happens to be a feature which will help uh, for building any BDD kind of story. So when I say what is called as BDD kind of story, let's assume something like this. Uh, Given some input, when the operation happens, then you do something. That's the whole idea of having BDD. In Cucumber, these people also support two more BDD words. One is called as and, one is called as but. For example, if I'm building a scenario, the scenario should be wrapped pretty much inside the given method. For example, let's consider for loan. Given the loan applied for $20,000 when customer works in government firm, then I'm sorry, when and check salary more than more than I just put something like more than very minimal dollar $2,000. Then uh, issue the loan. Maybe you can have as many conditions as possible, and the age should not be more than 50 years. Then issue the loan, right? So now what happened? You pretty much went ahead and tried building a scenario test. Now, who will do all these things? This is not something as a developer, somebody would come and do it. We know that when we say something called as V model, we have SRS, which is built by people at the top end here, or your HRD is built by manager or technical architects or somebody like domain expertise. For these people, building a case study, something like this, is very simple. Now, what we do is, likewise, you can go ahead, try writing anything. Trust me, over a course of time, if you could understand this, it means you have understood Cucumber pretty much. It is as simple as it. The entire story here happens with something called as given when then. It is only like English like language, and given when then always falls in the um, one after the other. Once you have given, that case has to satisfy, only then it goes to when. When has to satisfy, only then it goes to then. Now, certain times you can also check, uh, you can also have something like, but customer should have returned. I'm just trying to write any, the formation of sentence. Customer should have. Customer should clear high with some story. So the whole idea here, given the case, if he applies for a loan, when certain set of job happens, then you can do something. But when you do something, you can also say, but I want to satisfy with this condition. That is where you have a scenario. Now what happens? I can have one scenario. I can have one scenario. I can have multiple scenarios. I can have somebody like who's applying for $70,000, who's got salary of like $5,000, and his age of 45, and so on. So now pretty much he's he should not be more than 45 years. That is good. Likewise, if I try doing this permutation combination of the test cases, trust me, they can go over hundreds of cases. Hundreds of cases. That is where the scenarios will come. All the scenarios in the world will get wrapped in a file which is called as dot feature file. In feature file. Now, what does my feature file do? The feature file will help you to wrap each of the scenario. Now, how many scenarios you can have, I don't know. I can have as many scenarios as possible. That's the whole idea of having it. So what happens here in our BTD test cases, whenever we want to have scenario, each of the scenario will have something called as the steps or the scenario details. So each of the step here is called this. So this is one of the step. This is a step. This is a step. And this is a step. So each of this is a step. So eventually, for a course of time, if we want to have the test case to be executed, the test case will get executed for somebody called as step. On the other end, I should have the technology. So you have English. On the other end, I should have technology. So in our case, today we are using somebody called Java. So it works. Again, need not be Java. There are various technologies where Cucumber can come and help. Somebody like .NET, PH, Python, the JavaScript supports it, Java supports it, and so on. There are various people. Ruby supports it, and so on. There are various programming languages which has come in the world which support this concept. So, moreover, when we say BDD for this concept, there is somebody called as Cucumber who supports. On the verge of it, there are somebody who's called as Rest Assured also who does BDD. There is Jasmine who does BDD. There is Mocha who does BDD and so on. So now let's consider I have Java. So what we pretty much have it in the Java is a class. When I have a class, now what happens? When I have a class, now what happens? Each of this class will have methods. For example, I have a method which is called as M1, M2, M3, M4. And so there are a lot of methods where I can have it. Now, the whole idea here, I should have a mechanism where there could be somebody who can understand an English-like language, which is written in a feature file, and that can map each of the technology file. So, like methods, each of the methods will do its own job because the entire test case has to be written by these people. Now, behind the screen, what happens? These methods, when you try writing it, understand this very cautiously. These are basically called as POJ, which is plain old Java objects. They are called as POJ, which is plain old Java object. They don't have any relevance to what tools you're using it. Today, when we wrap up, with the Cucumber and another technology, we use Selenium. So the another is substituted with Selenium. There could be a scenario, the Selenium might not be there, there could be rest assured. The rest assured might not be there. Tomorrow I want to use browser stack, or I want to use Ranorex, or I want to use Appian, Sauce Lab, anything. But the whole idea here is to ensure that the job is done. This guy who is called a Java class will act as an interface for the rest of the technology. I don't know what it is, so this we have to talk a little later. May not be today, it is some other time. Now, what happens when you have an English like language? This English like language has to be given to this guy in some understandable fashion. What we do is we introduce somebody called as Cucumber. Now, Cucumber is one tool. What this guy does is he will pretty much swallow the feature file and connects it to the technology file. Now, when we can connect technology file by Cucumber itself will not be anything. That's a fact, fake thing. Cucumber has a core executor, and this core executor is somebody called as Gherkin. Gherkin. So Gherkin is a language, or I'm sorry, it's not a language, it's a tool which is written using a language which is called as Ruby, which is written using the Cucumber, which you see it here in the outer layer, can be portably used in any language, which invariably communicates to Gherkin for every business logic. This guy can be Java, .NET, JavaScript, Python, and so on. There are various places where we can go ahead and support. That's the whole idea. So what happens? You have a feature file. The feature file will have scenarios. The feature file will be given to Cucumber. Now this Cucumber, what this guy understand is somebody like English like language. This will be given to Gherkin as each steps. Gherkin, what it does, it's a core of your executor. For some reason, Gherkin is written using Ruby. In fact, the whole story of Cucumber or Gherkin was first written by Ruby itself. Over a course of time, this was used in various programming languages. What Gherkin does is it will substitute the values which are given by Gherkin, and it will locate the step files or a projo files in your respective language to identify where it can substitute. Now, what happens when you try substituting? There should be some mechanism in the verge of selection from feature file to the Java file. Now, the question is how this can be done. How this can be done. So, imagine yourself, if this is your test case, we eventually have this, this itself will become a test case in some point in time. So, now if I try having this as a test case, I have to make uh, loan is applied. This is loan. Sorry, the type. So now, if I try having this as a test case, I should have some mechanism where I can map the test case method. So what happens? Eventually, the method name is public void m1, which is a method name. Now this could be anything. I can say here, as of now, I just put some system.out.println, system.out.println. I'll say the loan is applied for 20,000, right? That's the whole idea of having it. So what we do is we will execute some business logic. So it may be connecting to a database, it may be doing some job, whatever. So somebody says that, okay, we want to open the browser. When we want to open a browser, probably in Selenium, we try doing driver.get. That's a business logic for me. So each business logic is considered to be one step in this story. Likewise, if I consider the scenario itself, in scenario, I can have so many steps. I can have given the loan applied for $20,000. I can also have somebody like a public void M2, which is a next method, which is system.out.println. Here I'll say customer works in garment firm. So I'm just trying to type what I have done. There's nothing special. The same thing. Now I have method one, method two, method three, and so on. I can run out with like hundreds of methods here. I can have a big class which does this job. Now on the verge of it, how can we make this guy who is cucumber educated so that it should look for the methods there? In order to do that, in order to do that, there are certain special annotations which we have to use it. Now, what is my annotations? How do I use it? And so on. Let's go back here. In my business logic, I know that this is called as a class. Now, this is called as a class. The when is called as a class, and then, but they're all called as class. So here, for the class, there is a definition. There's a definition. The definition is something which you want to execute. Now, what I do is I'll go back here and say, hey, I want to execute this method which is called as M1. So if you see this, this guy will execute a method called as M1. How do I map it? I will go back and say annotate with given. So this given is pretty much written by Cucumber for our assigning the definition. My definition will pretty much have this. Now, the moment I do something called as at the rate given, it goes this the cucumber will look for in the feature file. Is there somebody who is called as given with the exact text? as it is. It's a text. You see something under $20,000, that will be substituted with some other value. That's in a later point of time. As of now, it is just a text. So I can have a text. My text, my text can be uh, given a class. The class is called given, which will be annotated. Then I can have the exact test here. Now what happens if I try doing it? If I try doing it, the story from feature file, the methods are annotated here. This connection is pretty much done by Gherkin, and this concept is called as glue. This is called as, or this is called as gluing. So gluing is you take the data or the English like language file in one end. On the other end, you have the technology specific file. Now the whole idea is to connect it. On the verge of it, they strongly believe each method will have an annotation. Each method will have an annotation. Now each annotation is the class which you pretty much do it in the scenario file. So the whole idea here, when you're applying for mortgage loan or some XYZ kind of loan, the idea behind is to check some conditions for given Nandan. I just say given the loan applied for $20,000, customer works in government firm or they may work in private firm or they can work as consultant and so on. So we can also have a cut saying that, okay, if you people work in government firm, you have so and so privileges. If you work in private firm, you have so and so privileges. And on top of that, the salary is another constant and age is a constant. I cannot have somebody applying for $3 million who is like 68 years and not working. So I don't want to sanction this kind of loan. Or I want to check with the credit card, and I can also check with the credit score of it. So given the loan applied is $20,000 and the credit score is something like 678. So that's my credit score for today for a customer. So given the applied loan for $20,000, this is a credit score, works in government firm, salary more than $20,000, age is should not be over 50 years, issue a loan, but customer should clear the hypothecation with valid letter or whatever supporting documents. That's a whole idea of having one scenario. Likewise, I can go ahead and try having multiple scenarios. On the verge of it, let's go and try understanding how to deal with this. So I go back and try opening Eclipse again. Here with this project, I'll just right click and okay, probably I can select the project. I can go to project, close. So that if it has some errors in your project, that will all be hidden by Eclipse so that it does not trouble other projects. That's pretty important. So here, when I want to execute the cucumber, let's go ahead and create a new project. I'll go to file. I go to file, new. In new, let us create a Java project. That's a Java project. So now let's say project name is called as Cucumber Works. Cucumber Works. So let's say new in the source. Of course, we have the source. I keep source as it is. I want to create a couple of more folders. One is new. I want to create a source folder. If you look at this, there's somebody called a source folder, which will be a sibling for source. I'll say resources. Now, the whole idea here of having resources, you don't have to really have it. You can keep everything in SRC, but it's just good to have it. Then what goes in the sources resources folder is all your property files, all your feature files, your XML files in case if you have it, and so on. And there's another file which we try another source folder we are planning to have is one is called as tests. So this is where we come across with JUnit. So there are like three folders. So logically, what I have divided is you will keep all the features in a place. We'll keep all the Java stuff in the SRC. And finally, we will keep the test cases in a package which is called as test. That's where I want to go with. Let's go back and try seeing what we can do. The first and foremost, I need the dependencies. On the verge of getting dependencies, what I do is I would convert this project to a Maven project. So let me right click, configure as Maven project. This is your Maven. So here, let's say it is cucumber works, and say finish. So I'll go back to POM. I need few dependencies. Let's make a list of what dependencies I need. So today I'll be using JUnit. So JUnit. Cucumber comes for various programming languages. I should look for Cucumber for Java and Cucumber core. So that's something which I need. And there are a couple of more dependencies. One is Cucumber JUnit integration. One is Cucumber JVM at the runtime to support it. So they are pretty much required for our dependency. So here in Cucumber works. Here I have pom.xml. So pom.xml. So pom.xml here will have the content. So you have a JUnit. Let me just copy this. So here I copy and paste it. So this is what we wanted. So let's have a look at this. So first and foremost, I need JUnit. JUnit, the current version is 4.12. I've just kept it as it is. Now, these people from Cucumber, they call their project name as Cukes. Uh, Cukes is small cucumber. That's it. Cukes is called small cucumber. That's why you see everywhere info.cukes, info.cukes, info.cukes. Everywhere the group ID is info.cukes. The project name might be changing. So here the project name is core. Then we'll have Cucumber Java. Then you have Cucumber JVM and Cucumber JN. So there are like a few dependencies which you want. So there were some dependencies within TestMG as well. So now I can copy these dependencies right from the dependencies till the dependencies. Right click and copy it. So once I copy, I'll go back to this guy who is POM. I have to find where to paste it. I'll paste it somewhere here. After version, just before build. So the build here will change from each of the systems. So it again depends on uh, are we using Java 1.7, 1.8, whatever. So I'll go back and right click and uh, paste, paste. So let me go back and do file save. The moment I say save, on the bottom corner, you should see it is building the workspace. It's just downloading all the dependencies. Let's go ahead and check if this has downloaded. On the left hand side, I have Maven dependency. I should find every dependency here. So my dependencies come here. One is JUnit. You have Hamcrest. Hamcrest are all dependent on Cucumber core. HTML is there that will give you a nice report of our job. So JVM dependencies. The Gherkin is there because Gherkin also comes from Cucumber core. So Gherkin is not there, your Cucumber is not there because most of the job which gets executed will be done by Gherkin and Cucumber Java and Cucumber JUnit, which is an integration between JUnit and Cucumber. So these are few dependencies which we needed for our execution. Here, the whole idea is to come across with this three packages. One is SRC, resources, and test. That's where our most of our time is spent today. So first and foremost, I want to start the story with something called as resources, which is basically a English-like language where you want to try executing. So I right-click on resources. I want to create a nice package. So a package, I'll say com.sted.features. As of now, there is no classification of the features. It might be a loan feature, it may be an insurance feature, it might be something else. I don't know what it is, but it's just a feature for me as of now. So all my features will go and sit in this package. Again, don't be skeptical. I can have as many packages as possible you want to represent features. I have uh, uh, practically experience where there are like tens of feature packages, and I can try loading pretty much what is required at the time of execution on the fly. So here in the feature, we have this scenario file which we are planning to keep it today. So which is this. So let's call some name here. I call this feature file to be created called as loan dot feature or yeah, should be okay. Loan dot feature. So here, all right, new. You don't have an option, you're trying to use Eclipse or that means IntelliJ add-on to create a feature file. Rather, what you do is you create a file. You have an option called as file. Please do not select text file. So I say do not select text file. So what happens if you select a text file and if you are mentioning the file name as loan dot feature, this will be converted as loan dot feature feature dot txt. So that's how it gets converted. So invariably we land up the typos. So on the cautious note, when you create a file, make sure you create a file here. So let's call this file called as loan dot feature feature. In my case, it gives you a lot many things. Don't worry about this. We're gonna come back. I'll also help you to install this small plugin. I do Control A and delete it. So this is your loan file pretty much. So do remember every feature file should get started with something called as feature feature. So feature. So you can try writing the feature. Feature can you can try writing anything, but the whole idea of feature is to write a story which will tell what each scenarios are doing here. That's an idea. So now let's go back. Let's go back. Here I can say this could be any story again. It will be uh, to sanction the loan for capable customers. So I can have the scenario here. Scenario. So I can have a scenario. It can also have its own story. Uh, so at the feature level, I have not had any kind of a load. Here I'll say um, to sanction uh, loan sanction. So I'm really bad at writing the test cases. So I'm just trying to put some story out there. So the whole idea here is I want to have a scenario with some header. Again, this is optional. You don't want, you can just quickly go ahead and delete it. Perfectly fine. So I want to go back to this guy who we had written and copy this and come here and put it. So I'll have given and when and then but. That's my whole story of having it. As of now, for me, there is a lot of highlighters which works. If you are trying this now on your Eclipse, they don't work. They don't work as of now. So for this, we need an uh, explicit plugin to be installed to make sure this works fine. Is that fine? So at the least level, what we can do is there could be a feature. Once one feature, I can have multiple scenarios. So any point in time, if you want to put a comment, my comment here is not forward slash or forward slash asterisk. It will be found with the space. Be very cautious. You got to give found with space. I can say this is my comment. This is my comment. Is that okay? And you can pretty much try writing anything of your choice. That works fine. Now, once we have a scenario, so we have pretty much did this story. So where you have where you have the feature file. Now I got to go back and find this glue. We're going to do it a third step. But before that, I want to have this stuff to be done, which is writing a Java code. So this will take care of this, guys. So here I have a package which is called as SRC. Right click, new package. Many times I have seen people using or creating the package inside the SRC with the naming convention having steps or step definition, whatever. So I'll just follow the same convention, which is again a recommendation for Cucumber. Again, it is not something which is mandatory. You say you can create anything. I'll say com dot sdet dot loan dot step or steps or step definition, anything for that matter. This is where you can have the package. So let me right click new. I want to create a class. It's a class, a simple class. I just want the name as loan steps, loan step. So you have a simplest one. So what we want to do is we want to write a little story. So I just keep this side by side for a simplest understanding. Want to keep this side by side and make it full screen. So what happens on the left hand side, you have a feature file. Now I want to go ahead and try putting your um, test case. So first and foremost, I want to have a public void method name called as M1. This method name can be anything, does not make any difference for Cucumber at all. You can write anything, anything. But there are certain good conventions also over a course of time, we're gonna follow this. So now I'll say system.out.println, we will be having some business logic, but now the focus is only to understand Cucumber, not to integrate Cucumber with Selenium. So let's focus only on the cucumber for some time. So I can have the loan applied for $20,000. So perfectly fine. So this will be dollar 20,000. I just want to differentiate with dots. So I've just put some dots. Now, how does this guy has to map this? So this is more like English like language. This is a technology. How do we map it? So what we do is we'll go nicely here, copy this guy, I come here, I check if there is somebody called as given, which can support by Cucumber. When I do this control space, I should find the whole idea of cucumber.api.java.en, which is basically from English. So they have a good support for internationalization, where SP comes from Spanish, JP from Japanese, and so on. I just click on this, and here I paste this. Now what happens? Gherkin is very intelligent guy. What this does is it will try scanning the feature file and keep it in the stack and scans the uh, Pojo file, keeps it in the stack, and each of the stack are identified with the step, and the step here will be the uh, correlated glue for that or glue or this called as a class. So class is checked against the annotation. And what text it is, it should be exactly the same text as what it is. Only then it does a glue between these two people. Likewise, of course, here you can go ahead, try having the method name as this, called as M1, or it is possible. I always feel good, and of course, it's a recommendation from Cucumber. The method name itself is this, but we just put this with underscore. Is that good? So here, the method name itself has become the step which we have written in the feature file. Likewise, quickly what we do is we'll go back to this guy. The current credit score is 678. So I'll go back. I'll say public void. So this is the whole idea of having it. I'll say system.out.println. I just want to paste it and put some dots here. I want to have this is and class, and this is where the data is. So we'll go back and here we have it. So the next guy is customer works in government firm. I'll copy this and go back. This is again, this is an event class. This is an event class. I'll say public. All right, void. This is something which I have to type it and what it takes little time, of course, undoubtedly. So this is where we want to have it. I'll say at the rate in given. It's so beautifully done. It's so beautifully done. You can say something kind of given. I'm sorry, this is not given. This will be when. I'm sorry. This is when. The when class. This is when. So the next comes and check the salary more than $20,000 or $2,000. I'm sorry. So here at the rate and this is the case. I want to have public void. This is where you have it. So you want to have I just say system dot out dot println. Yes, this is. So as of now, I'm just trying to put system dot out dot println statement. Eventually, over a course of time, this should be changed. This will be changed. Maybe if you consider our Selenium test case itself, if you're thinking at that angle, you will say you will say something like click on login form, enter the details. So when you say enter the details, the control is given here. Here we'll put all our business logic. Then the age should not be more than 50. So what we do is I'll say here and this is where I can have public void. That's my method name. So of course it's getting filled. So let's have this. So I can have this system dot out dot println. The next method, the age should not be the last two are issue the loan. Perfectly fine. Then at the rate, then this is where the story is. Void. Issue the loan. Issue the loan. All right, makes sense. The last one, customer should clear hypothecate hypothecation with valid letter or whatever. So at the rate, but so this is the story up there. I'll say public void. This looks perfectly fine. Yes. And you remember, they're all like one time. And trust me, over a course of time, you don't have to type it, but this is something which you have to do it for the first time, very importantly, because this gives us a good understanding of the application as where we are heading. So if you could just map or connect the dots, which we have done so far, the idea here is you have the test case, which is your feature file. The feature file will have a step file. Now, the step file is somebody who basically have the connects between uh, the feature file and your step file. But now there should be somebody who should do all this story, right? Now this is done by test, or you call it as a glue, as a glue. So what we do? Let's go back. Let's go back. We have tried some good job. We've done some good job so far. I'll go back and close this guy. I close this feature file. The bomb file is good, so I can close that as well. So you have source, you have resources, you also have a folder which is called as tests. In the test as in a folder in your project, even in your live application, you will not have too many tests. Ideally, you will have only one test. So in this case, I create a package. I'll say com.sdet dot. That's where you can have, or I can have test runner. Test runner. RU in it here. Test runner. So let's create a JUnit test case. JUnit test case. So JUnit test case will say cucumber test runner. Perfectly fine. So this is good. I don't have to have this annotation. This is perfectly fine. And do remember, the JUnit here will only act as a framework where you can try executing the test case. It's only with parameterization. So now we remember we had something called as run with parameters. So now I want to run with cucumber.class. So cucumber.class. So here, if I go back and see, I should find the cucumber for cucumber.api.junit.cucumber. So that's where you have it. So plus, I should go ahead, try finding how to connect it. Now, the whole idea of having this file is to connect between two people. Who are those? One is a feature file, the other guy happens to be the Java source code. So, for doing it, I have an annotation which is called as cucumber options. Cucumber options. The cucumber options will have a list of story. A list of story. Now, what is my story here? Everything should be kept here. And do remember here, this class shall not have any source code, rather it will act as a placeholder. Hope this is making sense. You will not have any implementation at all. You will not have any implementation at all. So what happens? This cucumber options will tell what options to do. So minimum to minimum, I have to give two options. One is to identify where this feature file is, where are this class file. Because in your project, there might be hundreds of packages. Now, Cucumber have to go and understand what? Does it have to really understand the DAO, services, or feature files, or the POJOs for Cucumber, and so on. So we have to identify where those people are. For doing it, there is a we'll just do that control space. We'll just do a control space. Here, you will find something called as features. So features. So I just want to little zoom and show you a very important thing. When I say features, do remember features will take array of string, meaning I can have features written in multiple packages. That is what I was trying to discuss some time back, where I can keep it in multiple packages. When I keep it in multiple packages, I can keep referring that in the features. I can say that as com dot estate dot loan feature, com.st.insurance feature, com.st.login feature, and so on. I can pretty much pass everything in a form of array. So let's go back and click on this. That's the first annotation which we are trying in Cucumber options is equal to, that's an array. So what is my first array? My first array is a feature file. Now do you remember, since it's a feature file, it is a folder, you have to give the value separated with slash, not as a package called as dot, right? So for this, I'll go back for this or up to the folder level, right click, copy qualified name. So here I can just put this. So I just want to keep this as forward slash, and so on, right? That should make sense. Here, once after this, I should find where I can give the source code. I will not find a opportunity where we can have the data which is kept in the source, but you should see somebody called as glue. You should find somebody called as glue. So let's go back to glue. Here, I've just put the glue is the source which is kept. The source is this place. So, or if you want to load all the packages, I can pretty much right click on this package and copy the qualified name and come here and execute, which is com.estate.loan.step. And if you do this, pretty much we are good to go ahead and try executing the hello world example in our case. So let's see if this can work well. So far, whatever we have done, right click, run as J. So it gives an error. So it says that, okay, illegal argument. Okay, let me copy this stack trace. I'll copy the stack trace and put it in Notepad and check. So here, uh, not a file or directory. Okay, this is where it says it is illegal argument. Let me just try this feature file, which I have to embed. Maybe I have to embed this feature file. Feature file is under RESOURCES slash resources slash com dot sj dot features. Let's see quickly. Just go ahead and with JUnit. Yeah, perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. So this is really good. So what happened? The test case went ahead and executed, and you have there was a scenario, and there were so many scenarios. So far, there's no business logic, so it just annotated with nothing. But entire test case has passed. The whole idea, which we were trying to do it, uh, which we were trying to, there's few test cases. If you see that, this is something which the plugin has given us. The plugin has given us for understanding. So there are few stuff which we have to keep track of it. Let's go back and try identifying what this is. Have a look at the output. There were one scenarios, 7 steps, and you also see the characters are not clear. Characters are not clear. In order to make those characters clear, if you want to substitute that equivalent to your Unicode, then you have to say monochrome is equal to true. Monochrome is equal to true. So let's go back and right click again, run JUnit. Perfectly fine. So here you will have no problem at all. The characters are pretty clear. So there is no substitution. They invariably get substituted to the equivalent Unicode because there is always a dependency from Ruby to Cucumber to Java and so on. So that's one of the reasons. So here, it also gave something. It says that you can implement missing steps with the snippet below. So this you don't have to really worry. In some time we can crack it, but I just want to understand the loan applied for which is here. Let's go back to this guy. The loan applied for is $20,000. So here I can just put the backslash, or maybe I have to put everything in double quotes. So this should really so that it doesn't trouble us. The whole idea here, it should not trouble us. It will look like a string. So the same thing, I'm gonna keep it here and keep it here as well. So for this, I have to make some changes even in the source code. So in our login step, there's 20,000. So I'll say backslash double quotes backslash double quotes. So that meaning you cannot put the double quotes here. The moment you put it from here to here will be treated as a string. From here to here it will be treated as a string. But this will be substituted as value, which is false in our case. So what we do is we use a escape sequence so that it does only value substitution. Of course, there is more place, which is here backslash double quotes backslash not here, not here, not here, which is dot here dot backslash perfectly fine. So this is where we can have. Let's see if this goes well. Then we run through the application. So just check salary. Okay, there's one more guy. Check salary more than $2,000. So there's a trouble here. Check salary is more than $2,000. Just give me a second. All right. So in the test feature, I'll go back. Okay, so here this is still troubling me because it may be substituting with the wildcard character, not the number substitution. Maybe it is not taking the special character called dollar. I may just have to check this with the ones. If not, we may have to use a different strategy. Yeah, I may have to use a different strategy for substituting. Anyways, let's do that. Let's As of now, since this is our first example, I will get rid of dollar. We will get this dollar as a second variant here. So the whole idea here is just to keep 20,000 here, 2,000 here. We will get this dollar and do a substitution with this by understanding the code in some way. So here, loan feature is perfectly fine. So here I should have loan, which does not have the dollar. Good. So here, you don't have to have all these guys. I'll go back and delete it. All right, here. Let's do that. So here, when I go ahead and try executing the test case, right click, run as JUnit test case. Loan applied. Awesome. So the loan applied. There may be two spaces. We just have to get rid. The spaces matter a lot here. So this is our test case. Yeah, good. The things went on well. So we have just taken it off the dollar symbol. We will get back to that in some time. Okay, so now let's understand what has happened so far. It went ahead, tried looking for features, which was kept in resources, com, SDET, features, and what would have scanned there are all the files which are there, all the files. Any feature files which is kept here will be scanned. So if I know eventually over a course of time, we're gonna go back and put more and more feature files. All these things will be scanned. Then it looked for glue. So glue has somebody who is called step file. So that will be loaded in the stack. So if I just go back and put this pictorially, this is where I can have somebody called as featured. So which is featured, yes, right here. I'm gonna copy this and put it here. So this is where you will have. So let's this. I just reduce the font, so hope that should be okay. And what we will have. So the next guy comes in our case is here, the source file. Source file. Now what happens? Each of the source file is not loaded. Source file is not loaded because document has nothing to do with your source file. It will pretty much load only this one. It will just load this story. So one, I keep loading this. Two, I load this. Three, I load this. Five, six. The last one is seventh. Okay, so this is where the actual story goes. So you have each of this with, yeah, I just give a nice separator. Okay, so it is identified. So what happens here? Your cucumber job, what it does is it will try taking the given and look, is there anybody who is annotated with at the rate given? That may not be loaded in the ordered fashion, that may be in ordered as well, but the whole idea here is to load it. And do remember, you have to have everything as unique. So I say the load applied for 2000 is loaded. So thus will be substituted by this guy. This checking is done by Cucumber. So Cucumber only comes here to fix the glue between these two people, and they provide an annotation with somebody like given, and, when, then, but, etc., etc. Likewise, imagine if you have like hundreds of test cases, all these hundreds will be loaded here, hundreds of scenarios will be loaded here. Each of the scenarios should be unique. The whole idea here is to map. On the verge of it, a lot of fancy things may happen for us to do that. So here we can go ahead and introduce something called as a regular expression. So maybe when that console started showing the error, which was saying that missing expressions. The reason why it was showing missing is because I probably we have put a dollar. There was no substitution of dollar here, so that is where you had this missing exception. If not, each of this feature steps in the scenario will have a match. So now in our Cucumber test cases, here I can go ahead and explore. There are few plugins. So there are some nice plugin. One of the plugin which is called as Pretty plugin. So Pretty plugin is pretty easier to understand the output. So let's have a look at the output currently before executing. This is my output as of now, which I have executed. So let's do Control A, copy this, and go back to this guy. This is your first output, which is got. So this is your first output. So the output is from here to here. This is our first output. So when I introduce Pretty plugin and run as JUnit, let's have a look at this. I'll Control A, copy this, and go back here. Look at this. The Pretty plugin will say, okay, there was no additional information without Pretty, but Pretty will say, I want to have feature to be executed to sanction the loan for capable customers, which the loan applied for $20,000. The credit score is 678, blah, blah, blah. In fact, this is what it gets executed inside the method. Then this is where the entire story is given. The file name is called as loan.feature. The comment is given. The scenario, loan sanction for the mortgage. Given, for this given, what is the method? The method is this. And the credit score is 678, what is the method substitution? And so on. They give us a clean detail of whatsoever which can happen. All right. So if no, let's move further. There could be some possibility. Let's go back. So I just want to take you to their official website, cucumber.io. This is where the entire story of Cucumber comes in. It's a simple human collaboration. So they got some nice collaboration now. If you see this Ruby, Java, JavaScript, C Sharp, PHP, Python, and so on. Let's go back. Cucumber reference. Here, I should find something called a HTML because I'm just planning to show some uh, plugin. Okay. So the one which we have seen is a pretty plugin. I should find a plugin here which is called as HTML. Let me do Control F and look for HTML. There's one entry. There's a second entry. So yeah, Cucumber characteristics generates HTML or JSON reports on overall test timings as well as timings and usages, steps, blah blah blah, all these things. Now the syntax is pretty simple here. So the whole idea here to have, of course, I'm planning to show you on the code. If not on the plugin, you just have to call this HTML and you got to give the file where you want to keep. I just want to keep it in target, which is the folder. Cucumber reports. I'll say I can just say my reports. So that's it. So this will be one of the plugin. So just to prove that point, I don't know if somebody has written a blog here. Let's see. Yeah, this is a pretty. I should find somebody who's got HTML perfectly fine. So here it is. Look at this. This is where we can go back and keep it. So it's a pretty similar thing. So what happens? You can have HTML target as my report wherever you want to keep, or the name called as Cucumber reports. So how do we do it? Let's go back to Eclipse, and we have the pretty. as a plugin. We want to have another plugin which is kept, which is HTML. Uh, there's already a folder in our package explorer. If you see, there's always a target folder kept for us. If not, what Cucumber does internally, they try creating a folder. They create a folder. So here, target slash in this, I want to have HTML reports. HTML reports. Let's go back. Let's go back. Run as G. It gives you the pretty plugin, pretty output. Plus, if you go back, right click, refresh. When you refresh inside target, you will find a folder which is called as HTML reports. Let's go to this folder. I'll copy this. I'll copy this and paste here. Perfectly fine. So this is where you can try having with index. So let's open this feature to sanction a loan for the capable customers. This is my comment. There's a scenario. The scenario has the entire story. This kind of reports can be as fancy as possible. There is somebody who there are a lot of people in the market who supply this kind of reports with a paid licensing. Now, one happened to be extent reports. So extent report is one another guy who will supply. This is just to give you a heads up. Of course, in our discussion, we're not gonna get in detail of understanding what is extent report. But the whole idea here is to get a report something like this. What is executed? What is not executed? We can try playing with the assets and so on. That is where you can have somebody called as extent report. Or your test case which are passed will be green strip, if not, it will be red strip and so on. They've done some good job in the market. They've got some good presence in the world when it comes to extent report. Right here in the loan feature, I want to have um, something here. I would like to have one more scenario. So this time the scenario is little different. I don't want to play around with a loan amount of like 20,000. I want to have somebody like $70,000, and the credit score which this guy has given is 555, and he works in a private firm, and you want to check his salary is more than $3,000 for what reason. So in this case, there's just a scenario. If you see the difference between the first scenario and second scenario, the only change is the sentences they remain always same. So that's one of the rules which we have to follow. The whole difference is the value. So I might have various scenarios. Each scenario will have a change in the value. That's a whole idea. I hope that is making sense. If not, even when we build an application, there should not be any change. Now, what happens if I go back and try writing the entire story back? Um, I have a test case, the loan applied for 20,000, but I don't have a test case for the loan applied for $70,000. I may have to pretty much copy this guy and go back here. So you have a method for $20,000. I might have to go and write at the rate, at the rate, given this public void is your method name. So here you have to put some statement here, right? That's a whole idea of having it. So I just put this. So when I execute, what Cucumber will do is it'll look the feature file. It'll look okay for the loan applied for 70,000. Do I have a glue code or glue step? Yes, it's subs. If not, it gives you pending. So what is my pending? Let's go back and execute the test runner. Let's go back and execute to this guy here. It gives you a whole list of warnings. They still work. There's a whole list of warnings. Let's go back and check. So they work well in the first case because it is a 20,678. government firm, and all these things. A little scroll down. So here I start the story for $70,000 loan. I go with a credit score of 5.5. And if you see here, everything worked well. There are two scenarios, 14 steps. Out of that, three were skipped. Three were skipped and three are undefined. Now, very, very, very importantly, we have to understand what is three are skipped, three are undefined. Here, given the loan for 7,000, this has worked fine because I should find here loan applied for $70,000, perfectly fine. After this, this will not work. None of this will work. There will be a case where this is not available because we have not written a step for 555. There is no step for private firm. There is no step for 3,000. These three are undefined, and since these are undefined, rest of these three will be skipped because the whole idea of BDD is given when then. When given is completely done, only then it will go to then. Uh, when when given is done, only then it will go to when. When is done, only then it will go to then, and so on. Right? So since this did not work, you invariably have this message passed. But also see, I have installed a plugin which we go ahead now and try understanding. It also gives you, oh, you would have missed this. This may be the possible case to happen. So what I do is I don't want to copy this, but I want to introduce something else. So to address this problem, which is called as regular expression. Now, what my regular expression meaning? Now, the whole idea of regular expression is to substitute the value. For example, now what happened in our test cases are this. My test cases are this. So here, let me just copy few of them. No, only which are getting different. The loan applied is 20,000. The loan applied is 70,000. So over a course of time, this value might get changed. This will be like something here. This might be something here. So this might, if you see the loan applied for, loan applied for, loan applied for, loan applied for, everything the same, only the values are getting changed. For this, I have to be a little more intelligent. If you don't want the regular expression, invariably you have to write four different methods. Or it is possible for us to leave it to cucumber and give the regular expression. Now the whole idea here is this is a integer equivalent. Every integer equivalent in the word is represented with backslash b. So people coming from C and C plus or especially C, we tried using something called as percentage d. So what we do is we say, hey, look at this uh, cucumber. I will have for any of the step which I'll be writing similar to this. This will be given as a parameter and backslash backslash because backslash is a escape sequence d. And how many characters you will have it? You will have more than one. Do you remember there are few mnemonics available here? One is plus, question mark, and asterisk. So plus meaning one or more occurrence. Question mark meaning zero or there is zero. Sorry, zero or one occurrence. I mean the number of character occurrence. The asterisk, the asterisk meaning zero or more occurrence. So that's a whole idea. This is not something particular to Cucumber. You go to any programming language, any scripting language, the story is pretty much the same. So now I can have uh, backslash d plus. This meaning the loan applied for will be there. After that, I will have an integer. How many characters will be there in the integer? There will be more than one character. What I do is I just copy this guy. I just copy this and go back and identify the login step. I want to delete this. I don't want this. I don't want this. So here I will just paste it. So I just paste this. So once I paste, This parenthesis, which you see, will be passed as an argument for the will be passed by the cucumber. For that, you have to say something called as int loan amount. Do you remember loan amount will be passed by. So this, I don't have this like 20,000. Rather, this will be. So Cucumber today is very intelligent, which is the loan applied for amount. I just put up, right. So Cucumber is very intelligent today. What this guy does is he says, if you substitute me with the regular expression, I can pass that value on the fly. So every time you see this kind of code, every time you see this kind of code, which is with parenthesis, with some special notation, then Cucumber will inject. What will it inject? For the first time, it will inject 20,000, then 70,000, then the third value, fourth value, and so on. Number of scenarios which you have. So let's see if this could work, and we'll also identify what other changes you have it. So here you have a grade score for 678. So I'll go back and copy this guy and just put it here. There are two spaces. You just have to remove one. Uh, Grade score. Just have int grade score. Perfectly fine. So this is something with government or private or consultant or semi-government. Any value which user can pass it. So now I can say this is a string substitution. This is not an integer substitution. For all the string substitution, I'll just put this square bracket. I want to substitute a value which is from A to Z, and how many occurrence I will have it or how many words I will have it. I will have one word. So one word. So all your one word will be kept in a curly braces, and this should be passed as a parenthesis by a parameter by Cucumber. So we wrap it within parenthesis. So the government works in from, I'll say, string from type. So this will be either in the government or either it is the private one. Whatever you substitute, it gets substituted now. That's the whole idea. So check salary, which is more than 20,000 or 50 years, whatever. All those things can be substituted here with regular expression. Let's see if this much we have done it. I believe this is the only change we have done. So we have got check. Oh, we have also done for the salary. So the big thing is, we just want to do it. Salary. So for salary again, I'll go back and get this perfectly fine. So here, salary, salary, perfect. This sounds good. So let's see if this goes well with the test runner. Right click, run as JUnit. Okay, so this is where it is executing. So there's a feature file. There are two test cases which got executed. So let us also see the console. This is where the console is. We have this console. Here you have a console. You see there are nowhere skipping of the steps. So we have two scenarios, 14 steps, all 14 steps are passed. All 14 steps are passed. So this is where the story was. This is the first output, and there's a description from the Pretty plugin for the first one. This is the second output. This is the pretty plugin out for the second scenario, and it works really well. Now, let's consider something like this, where we have multiple scenarios, right? So you have scenario one, obviously. You have I'm sorry, that's a feature one. You have first feature, you have one more feature, one more feature, one more feature. Likewise, you come across with like hundreds of features over the course of time. But now the whole idea is uh, to come out with a solution, something like this. So let's go back and discuss the solution more. I have a feature one. This is feature one. This will be feature two, feature three. This will be feature four, right? Eventually, what happens? We would have written the test case steps for each of this. This is perfectly fine. So when you have the test steps, you have a glue. So what glue does is it just goes here, scans everything, it goes here, scans everything, executes perfectly fine. Let's assume there are like over 500 test cases. Now today we don't want to execute all 500 test cases for whatever reason. We want to execute few things. Now the testing team would have come forward and uh, discussed with us saying that okay, we want to classify each of the test case in a certain way. So we have some test cases, somebody like smoke test. We have some test case which we want to execute once for all, which is called a sanity test. So you want to have a regression test. You want to have my own test. I want to define a custom test. I call it my test, and so on. So what we do is when I say smoke test, my smoke test should pretty much help and identify all the feature files where they have to be only part of the smoke test. Only then they have to be executed. So equivalently, I should also go with this execution. The smoke test concept may be there with one feature or maybe there with multiple feature. I might have some regression test to be done with one feature or with multiple feature, whatever it is. The whole idea here is when you have so many feature files, I don't want to execute many feature files. Just to depict this, I want to get one more feature into the play. But before that, we don't want to type so much because the first example, what we did is we typed every bit of it to understand the case study. But the next scenario, when we try writing it, it will be really simple. For that, in your Eclipse, you will just have to install a plugin. So I'll show you what to install it here. So you will have to go back to Eclipse. There are various ways to do it. You have to go to help. The first one is you have an option which is called as Eclipse Marketplace. When you click on Eclipse Marketplace, this will give you a new pop-up. Here it will show you all the plugins in case if you have installed the recent one, the popular, the installed, and you can even give a search here. So the easiest search which you can give is Cucumber. So I just go ahead, try typing Cucumber to install the plugin from the marketplace. So if you're using an office laptop, certain times the marketplace is blocked or whatever, you have to figure it out. Or there is an other alternative. I'll show you that as well. So this guy has given us the search screen. So if you click on this install, you will pretty much see all the installed plugins for Eclipse. So all the installed plugins for Eclipse. So let's see. It takes little time, of course. Okay. So here in my case, I have already installed Eclipse plugin for Cucumber. But if you want to install, you can go back and click on the search. Under the search, here it will give you a search bar where you can find all the plugins which you want. You can just try entering Cucumber. Just write Cucumber now in your case and click on go or hit enter. So when I look for Cucumber, it will give you the most probably the first first plugin or first option. So in my case, it is called installed. In your case, it will be looking something called as install. Install. So when you click on install, it will ask you for user agreement to accept it or decline it. Once you accept, the things are pretty fine. You just click on next, 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 and you may have to. It'll ask you for restarting the Eclipse. You just click on yes, it gets restarted. That's the first thing. So this plugin is one which is helping you to have this color coding. The comments are getting colored. The feature is in blue color, and so on. There's one way to do it. Or uh, somewhere here, you may have to Google it. Of course, let's try doing it. I'll go to Cucumber Eclipse plugin. Cucumber Eclipse plugin. So this is something which I can get it from the marketplace. So this is a new tab which I've opened. So this is where you have it. You may just have to click on install or take this and drag it on here. You will have to drag it on here. That's it. Just drag it on your Eclipse and the things are done. So this link can help you. I'll just keep this link somewhere here to install the plugin, marketplace plugin. Either you can do it the first way or the second way. These are one of the two ways where you can install the plugin. There are some nice explanation as what these people will do it with the Cucumber. Just out of the interest, probably you can spend some time understanding it. There are multiple people who supply. Of course, this guy undoubtedly the best in the market, and there is somebody who's called as Tools QA. Tools QA. So these people also support having the Cucumber plugin. Just out of your interest, if you like it, you can go with this. But of course, I'm not a very big fan of Tools QA. But the way how this has to be installed is a nice, nice story these people have written for installation, download and install. So first and foremost, this link is very important. This link here in step 3, this link is very important. The way how we go with this is I may have to go to Eclipse under help section, install new software. This time we're not going to go with Eclipse Marketplace, install new software. You may have to click on add. You can give any name, Cucumber, just paste it, say OK. It will ask you Cucumber plugin. So you can just click in your case, if you have not installed, there will be little more options. Just click on next and the installation just starts. Now it takes a little time. Uh, that's a little pain here, but takes little time and installation starts. So in meantime, by the time that guy does, I just go back other way, Cucumber plugin from Tools QA. Uh, First and foremost, go to help, install new software. The second step is click on add. Once you click on add, the third step is give name as Cucumber. URL is this. This here URL. Fourth, click OK. Here and follow instructions. Follow instructions. That's it. This will be the second way. This is here. First one, let me give a separator. That's a good idea. So I'll copy this guy and keep it here. So there are two ways. One, you can go to marketplace, drag and drop on tickets, or you can do this. It's taking a little time. So the first feature file which we have constructed is for loan. Let us construct another feature file where we want to do it with somebody like login because we want to have multiple test cases now for showing what is needed, what is not needed. The whole idea here is called as tags. Now, tags is a concept which will help us to identify what test cases to be executed. That's where our story was started. If you see here, there were so many test cases which are loaded. Now I can say, hey, look at this. I want this, this, this to be executed. So how do we do this? These are all called as at the rate tags. They are all called as tags in our case. Is that good? So we'll go back to this guy by the time the installation. Okay, I think the installation is done perfectly fine. Cucumber Eclipse feature is already installed and an update will be performed instead. Okay, I'm not very keen on it. I'll just cancel this for some reason. So this is called as loan feature. Let's go back and create a new file. I call it login.feature. Login. Look at this. A lot of codes have already come. We are not really bothered about it. I'll go back and delete it for some time. I want to have a feature uh, login to web application. So I want to have a scenario. So I have a scenario given when given the browser is open, when user gives valid valid username and password, then take user to homepage. That's where. So for this, you have to create the methods, right? So you don't have to do this now. Just on same file, right click and run as cucumber file feature. Just click on cucumber feature. This guy on your console will give you the missing methods. Look at this. It is as simple as it. So you just have to copy it. Just copy it. Here in login steps, in our loan steps, I'll just go back and create a class. I say the classes login step. And let's paste this. Let's paste this. And it is so simple. So simple. So we don't have to have pending exception because we want to put some implementation. We want to put some implementation. I just you can write anything here. So I just do Control Shift O so that everything gets imported. So you can do here no auto import. So here what I got to do is browser is open. So this one the three dots. Uh, the whole idea of having three dots is to see the output in the console. Nothing apart from it. The last one. Look at this. It's only this much. Whatever we have done so far is only text. Done. That's it. So you may go back to your test runner. In test runner, run as JUnit. Okay. So look at this. The way how it gets executed. The first loan, the second loan case, log into web application. This is so simple. So simple. Provided you have a plugin. But now the whole idea here is we don't want to execute everybody, rather we want to execute only login. But how do I execute login? So on the verge of it, I can say this is something called as sanity test. This is part of the sanity test. Again, the naming convention, you can give anything of your choice. When it comes to loan feature, I don't want this guy to be part of the sanity test. I want this to be part of the smoke test. Smoke test. So what we have done, the login has become sanity test, the smoke loan has become smoke test. So what I can do, I go to test runner. In test runner, I can say pretty much at tags, you have somebody called as tags. If you just put control space, you see there's a tags. Tags will again take array of strings. So it's a tags is what we want somebody called as let's consider as at the rate smoke. So who is there in smoke? Smoke test is lone feature. Let's go back. Let's execute once. See the output. It should execute only lone feature. You see here on the left hand side, there are only 2 test cases. There are 14 steps. Is that good? So now I don't want the smoke test. I want to execute only the sanity test or your login feature. I just say sanity. I'll right click, run as. So let's see what does this execute on the left hand side. I'll have feature. I have scenarios. Oh, I have only one scenario executed, which is log into web application. Look at this. Only 3 steps, one fast, one scenario is executed. And picking and choosing these people is so simple. You just have to play around with the tags, whatever tags you want. You just have to go back to the feature file, annotate, and no business here. You don't have to have any business in your Java application. They're all loaded. The Cucumber is so intelligent, it will check what to be executed and what not to be executed.
Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.